Op Nederlands 1. Het nu volgende programma staat niet in uw programmablad. Het boek 1984 van George Orwell staat ook centraal in de bioscoopfilm 1984, die 15 november in première zal gaan. Het is een film van regisseur Michael Radford, waarin de eerder dit jaar overleden acteur Richard Burton de hoofdrol speelde. Veronica wist beslag te leggen op het allerlaatste interview met hem dat naar aanleiding van deze film werd gemaakt. Het boek, dat geschreven werd in 1948, beschrijft het verhaal van Winston Smith, in de film gespeeld door John Hurt, en O'Brien, gespeeld door Richard Burton. Ze leven in een maatschappij die geregeerd wordt door Big Brother, een dictator die zijn volk toespreekt via een tv-scherm.
Well, I read 1984 when it first came out, which was about 1948 or 49.
49.
I haven't read it since. I remember it horrified me at the time, and I didn't think that it was possible that such a thing could happen. And
did you visualize it as a film possibility at the time?
Not at all.
You were beginning your acting career when the book came out. More or less,
yes,
in
barely.
49.
Yes. No, I never thought of it as a film at all. And indeed, I'd planned only to do one film this year, and do no work at all except that one film which I was going to do. And then they had a problem with the casting of O'Brien, and I'm devoted to John Hurt. So I said 1984, John Hurt, Michael Radford, how long will it take? And they said 5 weeks or something. So I said, all right, I'll do it. The whole thing is rather like walking a tightrope, because to play him as a sinister figure is very easy. To play him as a sympathetic figure, who nevertheless is dangerous. Dangerous particularly to John Hurt, because I torture him with rats and all kinds of things. But at the same time, I do it with a kind of kindliness. Now, it's very difficult. In fact, I've never known such a part where you play a villain, a monster, who is kind.
With a smile.
No smiles. That's too much. It's easy to do that. I'm going to kill you.
Yes.
In 2 seconds, I'm going to kill you. You see, that's easy. But if I say it kindly, it's much more difficult. And I'm not going to show you how I do it.
It's much more difficult to make someone believe in you than to flash the smile for a momentary...
Yes, in other words, I have to play against my normal personality, which is not easy.
What is your opinion about the real 1984 compared to the Orwellian version?
You mean this particular year?
The real today.
Well, I think it's happening.
Yes.
It's happening very subtly, particularly in the United States. They are beginning to talk a different language. I don't know whether you know it, but I had a very severe operation on my neck some time ago, 3 years ago. And periodically I have to go in and have checks to see that the thing hasn't gone funny. And my wife Sally and I went to the hospital very, very early in the morning, so to evade the press. And there was a jolly lady sitting there, and we explained why we were there to have this X-ray, and she said, I take it that the demographic, what was it say? The demographic information is the same. And I was completely puzzled for a second. And then we said, you mean it's the same address to send the bill? Yeah. So the language is changing and is becoming much, much more convoluted.
4392, Rosenblum, Mini Prod Light Industry Section. Outer Party Member 66755 Davis, Mini Prod Women's Section. includes the list of known agents of Goldstein actively engaged in the latest conspiracy.
Not much of this gets to the outer party, I'm afraid.
Of sabotage and seditious propaganda
to our leader.
The fact that our eternal allies in Eurasia are turning against us. More nests of conspirators and saboteurs have been uncovered, and further arrests are expected shortly.
You can... Yes. We're allowed that privilege. Some more of this? It is called wine. There are thought criminals who maintain that the resistance is not real. Believe me, Winston, it is very real. Perhaps you're not familiar with how it operates.
I'm attentive to the news.
Indeed. And perhaps you imagine a huge network of conspirators prepared to commit any atrocity to demoralize and weaken the order of our society. The reality is infinitely more subtle. If Goldstein himself fell into the hands of the thought police, he could not give them a list of his agents. Such a list does not exist. They are not an organization in the sense we know. Nothing holds it together but an idea. There is no possibility of change in their lifetime. In the face of the thought police, they cannot act collectively. Individually, they cheat, forge, blackmail, corrupt children, spread disease and prostitution in the name of spreading knowledge from generation to generation, until in 1,000 years you may find this of interest.
Thank you.
A rally in Victory Square at 21:30 hours. That is the end of the announcement.
Goodbye, brother.
Goodbye, brother.
I think it applies temporarily anyway, more to the Iron Curtain countries than it does to the Western world. Because I've worked quite a bit behind the Iron Curtain. And if you as I have done, come across a young man or young lady who was born after 1948, after the communists took over, they have been completely brainwashed. Of course, we all are. Well, we're all brainwashed. You're brainwashed by your press. We're brainwashed by our press and television and so on, but in a slightly different way. But it's impossible. I remember one particular girl who was born well after the communist takeover of Hungary, and it's virtually impossible to shift her to see anything good in our world at all. It doesn't exist. And I remember that you remember too, I expect, except you're a bit young perhaps, but when Khrushchev took over, he read Solzhenitsyn and said that one day in the life of Ivan Denisovich was a marvelous book, so the whole of Russia and the Iron Curtain countries read it. Then he was persona non grata, both Khrushchev and Solzhenitsyn. And suddenly it was a non-book. And those who had read it, because Khrushchev said they could, now turned against it. It was very extraordinary. The essential thing that people forget is that 1984 hasn't happened yet. And there's an essay of George Orwell's in which he says, I'm not saying this is going to happen in 1984. I'm saying it might happen in 1984. But there's a long time to go unless we blow ourselves to pieces. And what I think Michael Radford has done very cleverly is to put us back to 1948 in the fact, you know, the way we dress and
the deprivations of the war, the rationing,
the remnants of the war with all the flat streets. And I've seen about 30 minutes of the film, and I was in a state of shock for a time because it took me back, not forward. I remember those horrifying days when you couldn't get a bar of chocolate.
Has Orwell's book influenced any of your personal opinions?
No, I think he's right. I think unless we're terribly careful, 1984 is going to happen one of these days. Whatever year it will be, I don't know.
So he more or less reinforced what you have thought.
Yes.
It didn't change your...
Well, I think it tended to make me a little eccentric, so that I would rebel against any platitudinous cliche that was hammered at me. So I began to suspect certainly all politicians. I wouldn't trust any politician, or virtually any politician. One or two honest politicians, I suppose, around. I wouldn't trust a politician as far as I could throw the Houses of Parliament, because power is a tremendously dangerous thing. And to get power even on a minor scale, to just be a lower minister in the government, you have power. That much, but it's enough.
I suppose then you never vote in elections?
I voted once, to no avail, because I was living in Hampstead, which had been Tory, Conservative, ever since it was born. And I voted for the Socialist Labour candidate, who I think he got 2 votes and one was mine.
As one of the world's finest actors, over the years, have you changed your method of preparing for a role?
No. Well, I suppose I must have. Everybody changes. But Shelley Winters and Jack Nicholson once told me that I was instant method. In other words, I could be telling you a story, and they say, action, and boom, I drop the cigarette and walk straight on and do it. But they were being very flattering, I think, because most American actors are what they call method actors, and they cannot believe that anybody who's any good at all is not a method actor. So I'm included among the method actors, though I don't think I am a method actor. I remember Lee Strasberg, who was the doyen of method teachers. I used to go to, just for interest, I used to go to the classes that he gave sometimes. And he said to some girl who was doing some scene from something, he said, remember there is no such thing, remember that Stanislavski said there is no such thing as a small part. And I couldn't resist it. I said, you want to bet?
That's marvelous. So your acting comes from your heart and from your gut.
It comes from somewhere. I don't know where it comes from.
What is it like working with John Hurt as Winston Smith?
Well, that's the thing that first attracted me. You see, I planned only to do one film this year. And because I thought I would go into a sort of semi-retirement. Because I've been working very hard all my life. I barely had a day off. And I rather enjoyed not working, which I didn't think I would. And so I said, well, I'll do one film next year, and maybe one play next year, and piece of tat next year on Broadway. And then one film perhaps the year after. And but then once I announced that, I didn't announce it to the press or anything. I just let people know, all the people in Hollywood who I knew would spread the gossip around. And immediately, of course, I was offered everything in the world. But this, chiefly, I didn't even, most of the scripts that were sent me, I sent back unread for the first 6 months of this year. And then they had a bit of a problem with this because another man was cast to play O'Brien, and he became sick, or he couldn't do it. I don't know quite what happened to him. He's a friend of mine, too. And they were a bit desperate, and then I said, who's playing Winston Smith? And they said, John Hurt. They said, all right, I'll do it, because I admire him very much. I think he's one of the world's best actors. And I'd always wanted to work with him. He's a friend. And indeed, it is marvelous to work with him. He has such tremendous intensity and concentration that it's a joy to work with him.
Julia!
Get up. Stand up straighter. Look me in the face. Tell me, Winston, and remember, no lies. What are your true feelings towards Big Brother?
I hate him.
You must love him. It's not enough to obey him. You must love him. Room 101. You asked me once, Winston, what was in room 101. I told you that you knew already. Everyone knows. The thing that is in room 101 is the worst thing in the world. It goes beyond fear of pain or of death. It is unendurable, and it varies from individual to individual. It may be burial alive, or castration, or many other things. In your case, it is rats.
No. Please, what do you want me to do?
You will do what is required of you.
What is it? How can I do it if I don't know what it is?
In the proletarian areas, they will attack a baby and within 5 minutes strip it to the bone. They also attack the sick and dying. They show astonishing intelligence in knowing when a human being is helpless. The mask fits over your head, leaving no exit. I press the first lever, and the rats move into the front compartment. I press the second, and the door of the cage will slide up. These starving brutes will shoot at you like bullets. Have you ever seen a rat leap through the air? They will leap onto your face and bore straight into it. Sometimes they attack the eyes first. Sometimes they burrow through the cheeks and devour the tongue.
Tell me. What do you want?
Would you call their present film movement underground?
No. No, because Michael Radford has already established himself with the previous film. And John, of course, is very well known in the United States. He's been nominated for an Oscar. I think he's won Emmys and stuff like that. So he's really quite well known in the United States. No, it's the content of the film. I mean, I was told that the film was owned by a Chicago lawyer, and he'd had somebody write a script. And now I didn't read that script, it's just what I've been told. When they managed to buy it from the Chicago gentleman, they found that O'Brien, the part that I play, had a tremendous love affair with the part that Susanna plays, in competition with Winston Smith, which is not, I think, what Mr. Orwell had in mind. So quite clearly they would have made a terrible mess of it.
So you are rethinking your idea about retiring.
No, I said semi-retirement. I don't think I could retire. It's in the marrow of my bones. I don't think I could stop completely, but I think I can stop for certain lengths of time. And
slow down.
What?
Slow down.
Slow down. Not because physically I couldn't do the stuff, but I have done a great deal of work. I've done over 70 films, and I've done approximately 70 plays too. Shakespeare, Chekhov, everything. And I'm in the lucky position of having to be able to pick and choose. And also I don't care terribly much about the money. I've actually made films for nothing, if I thought they were good. I actually made one film, which I paid to do. I mean, I got nothing for the film, and I actually put up the money for it. And
which film was that?
The Taming of the Shrew.
We know the rewards of success. What are its pitfalls?
The pitfalls? I think the pitfalls of success in the film business are such that they almost type you. So if your first success is as an heroic figure, they then cast you forever as heroic figures. So despite the fact that I'm a Welsh miner's son, I've played more princes and kings and saints, Beckett for instance, priests, always heroic figures. And I remember having the most tremendous row because I wanted to do The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. But the Lemus, the central character in The Spy Who Came In From is a defeated man. And they said, you can't play a defeated man, you're a hero. So that's one of the pitfalls of being a big success on films. But I won that battle, and I did play it. And then, of course, they start to see you always as a defeated man. They have channel vision. They don't, they see on what you did last, and if it was successful, then they want to repeat it. That's one of the pitfalls.
How does it feel to be treated like a myth?
Well, I don't know. After 30 years, you're not aware of it, unless it stops. And I remember making a film in what used to be known as French Equatorial Africa. It's now called Benin, and it used to be called Dahomey. And Peter Ustinov was also in the film, who was also very well known, as you know. And the two of us used to go for walks through the town and stop at a bar and have a drink. And I said, or Peter said, there's something very odd about this place. Of course, nobody knew who we were. I mean, the last film they'd seen there was the original King Kong. So nobody knew who we were, and it's very odd. We were driving home, my wife Sally and I, the other night, and I wear what I wear in the film to work and home. So, and as you know, it's all boiler suits. Comment s'appelle boiler suits en français?
Oh, un sort of salopette.
Salopette.
Oui.
And I was sitting in the back of the Rolls Royce. Sally was sitting beside me, and the chauffeur was driving. And as we came to roundabouts and lights, you know, other cars would pull beside. And I'm accustomed to people going, you know, doing double takes. But there were so many, I couldn't think, why were they reacting in that way? But of course, the reason was obvious, because there was this magnificent Rolls Royce with a chauffeur, very pretty girl in the back, and a man in a boiler suit. So that they couldn't work out. Now, I'm quite used to it. Other people who were strangers to that business, who walk along beside me and say, look at the number of double takes that Richard gets, which I am now completely unconscious of. It's rather enjoyable. There are many advantages to being successful.
One last question, Mr. Burton. How has 1984 turned out for you?
So far, so good, but I've got quite a long way to go. My chief hope is that the film itself will be successful, and that obviously that I will be successful in it, but I think the number one thing is the film. You see, but I've done so many films where I've known that the film is not going to be very good, therefore I go for myself. In this one I'm prepared to submit myself to the general idea of the film, and I particularly want John Hurt and Michael to be big hits.
En dan zijn we nu echt aan het einde gekomen van onze avonduitzending. Maar we komen alweer heel gauw bij u terug, want aanstaande zondag zijn we vanaf 2 uur 's middags tot ongeveer 5:15 op tv. En een rechtstreekse uitzending van de Veronica strandrace vanuit Scheveningen. Volgende week donderdag zijn we natuurlijk weer vanaf 4 uur op Nederland 1 met ons middagprogramma Tineke, Super Ted en de Agenda. En 's avonds vanaf 7 uur met de 4e en laatste aflevering van het Veronica-avontuur. Na Sterrenjournaal om 9:05 eveneens de 4e aflevering van Master of the Game. Om 9:15 Hollandse humor in Hollanders, gevolgd om 9:30 door Veronica's maandelijkse auto- en motormagazine De Heilige Koe. Om 10 uur ontvangt Jan Lemverink weer 3 bekende gasten in Reur en tenslotte om 11:15 Today's FBI. Dit alles dus aanstaande donderdag op Nederland 1. Ik neem afscheid van u, slaap lekker en graag tot zondag.
Dit was Veronica.